What's going on, guys? Welcome to part 8 of this video, and we're going to talk about how to work around injuries if you're trying to lose stubborn belly fat and maybe even add some muscle. So maybe this is you. Maybe you lost some weight, you've had an injury, now you gained the weight back, you feel unmotivated, you don't know what to do, and you're scared to go back to lifting weights because you don't want to re-injure it. If that's you, I totally get it, and I think a lot of people kind of fall under this bucket. Well, in today's video, I'm going to tell you how to easily fix that in 3 simple steps. So we're talking about the shoulder, the knee, and the lower back. And just a disclaimer though, I am not a chiro or physio. I'm a fitness coach. I'm going to tell you how to work around it. That way you're pain free, not fix it. So I'm going to stay my lane. I don't want any lawsuits from you guys here. So again, if you have any injuries, I totally get it. It's frustrating. Myself, even as a baseball guy, I tore my rotator cuff about 16, 17 years old. It was a partial tear, but to this day, I still have shoulder issues when I'm doing like push day. Like even yesterday, I did a workout. I had to modify a bunch of movements because my shoulders kind of flared up. So if that's you and you're just kind of scared to, go in the gym, lift weights, or you just don't know what to do, we're gonna fix that for you in today's video. It's gonna be super simple. All it takes is a few main cues for each joint. So we're gonna start with the shoulder first. We'll do our knee second, lower back third. We'll recap it for you and hopefully you get some great value from this video. So the shoulder, there's gonna be 3 main positions, and I'll tell you to fix them. I'm just gonna list them off first, but 3 main positions that typically triggers a shoulder issue. And again, this is typically, I'm generalizing it. I can probably spend an hour on each joint. We're gonna spend just a few minutes on each, so just kind of take it with a grain of salt right here. But the first one is gonna be going too low, so kind of think like chest press, bench press, push-ups. Second one's gonna be going too wide, like a lateral raise, or just going too wide for chest press, incline press. And the third one's more strictly overhead. So how to fix the first motion. So maybe you have pain at the bottom of a chest press, bench press, or push-up, where you get that last position where the bar is basically on the chest, where the dumbbells are kind of past, which is the elbows are past the body. 2 things you can do. Number 1, of course, a very simple thing. You just obviously stop a little bit closer, meaning you're not gonna go all the way down. Just gonna limit the range of motion on the way down and make sure your elbows don't go past the shoulders. If that's hard for you to visualize, you can do 2 things. The first thing is put a sweater on your chest. So when you come down, it basically blocks it. Or the third thing you can do, you can even just press on the ground. So instead of doing the chest presses on the bench, do the ground, it's gonna limit the range of motion. It'll just give you great feedback from there. If it's a push-up, put like a block over your chest right here basically. You go down to your push-up, it'll limit the range of motion once again. So if that's you and you get that pain up on position, try that out and I guarantee it's gonna feel a lot better. The second thing is gonna be a lateral raise. So if this kind of hurts you, or like a wide grip press, for example, for a lateral raise, very simply, what you're gonna do is come a little bit closer. So this is like a typical lateral raise. Go palms in, come a little bit closer, and I want you to kind of raise in that position. What that's gonna do is create a lot more space in that joint, and it should move a lot more freely and feel better for you. If it's more like a wide grip press or an incline press, very simply, just tuck your elbows in more. So like this is your chest press position. Go like more 45 to even like all the way in. And again, it creates more space in the joint. It should feel better for you. That goes for incline and like a typical chest press or even bench press, for example. So that's how to fix the second thing. The third one's the overhead press motion. So if strict overhead presses hurt, I want you to try 2 different movements. You can do more like a landline press, where you're just right here, and you're just kind of pushing a little more horizontal, opposed to straight vertical. Or again, you can just do an incline press, where you're limiting that full range of motion. Because a lot of us, especially when we're working at a desk all day, or on our phones like this, we don't have that full range of motion. So if we're doing this all day, good things aren't gonna happen, right? If we're trying to go overhead. We're probably just gonna smash the joint, it's gonna hurt. And maybe this is you, you're like, yeah, this is exactly it. When I do overhead presses, my shoulder starts barking at me. So just try like more of a landline press, incline presses. That way you're not going to full range of motion, because I would say like 90% of us don't have the full range of motion. And even if we do, we're not strong and stable to keep that position at the top. That shoulder, we'll recap that. If it's too low, limit the range of motion. If it's too wide, go in, whether it's like lateral raises or like a closed grip press. And the third, if it's overhead presses, just do more landline incline presses. Moving on to knees now. For the knees, in a typical knee issue, I'd say for a lot of people, there's gonna be a few main positions that's gonna hurt it, or a few main exercises. A lunge, a squat, or any sort of leg press hack squat, right? Obviously there's like leg extensions, stuff like that, potentially as well. But for the most part, we're talking leg press, hack squats, lunges, something like that, that's gonna hurt it. So how to fix it? So if your lunges kind of look like this, and you're super knee dominant, right? You're kind of really shooting up that knee in that position, you're just gonna create a lot more tension on the joint, which is not what we want. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big believer in knee over toe because you want to get strong and stable in that position. But if you have pain right now, you probably want to avoid that extreme position because you're probably just gonna, bark at it and pick at the scab a bit more. So the first thing I want you to do, instead of 4 lunges, we're gonna reverse lunges, and I'm gonna tell you how to use your hips more because a lot of guys really struggle to use their hips, and everything just kind of looks like that, where you're putting so much pressure on the front part of your knee. So what you're gonna do with your hips right here, you're gonna push back. Even though you do the reps right now, get like a wall behind you, push back your hips, and just kind of work on almost like hitting the wall. Once you master that without kind of shooting these forward, you're gonna do the same thing on a lunge. You're gonna push your hips back. This is your starting position, and you're gonna come into the lunge and then come out. Into the lunge, come out, opposed to just kind of being in like this position the whole time, where the knees kind of jut over the foot a lot. So from a practical standpoint, look at the difference. If I'm like right here, look how much knee force and torque is over the foot. It's a lot, right? So you're gonna feel a lot more pressure here, opposed to if I'm kind of like in my hip more, and my chest is a little more down, look at the difference. We're talking a good like 25, 30 degrees. Again, I'm a fan of knee over toe, but if your knee's not there and it can't tolerate that force, don't do it. Do reverse lunges, get into your hips more, drop your chest a bit, and you should feel more glutes and less pressure on the knees at the same time. And the same rule is gonna apply to a squat, the exact same thing. If you're doing a squat and it's a lot of like knees forward, like that, get in your hips, same idea, whether it's a barbell squat, holding dumbbells to the side, it doesn't really matter. I would avoid heel elevated squats if you have knee pain. So just trying to do the exact same cues I just showed you, get in your hips, and then you squat down, whether it's barbell or holding dumbbells here. Lose my breath, I'm going fast, I'm a fast talker, Canadian, so. The third, so let me kind of recap that first and get to the next point. I just say for leg presses as well, if you're doing a leg press that hurts your knee, typically speaking, you want to get the feet higher on the platform. So the lower it is, the more knee bend you're gonna get. The higher it is, the more glutes you're gonna get, which once again is gonna take pressure off the knee. So to recap all this before we move on to lower back, if your knee hurts, I want you to kind of work on your hips, whether it's doing like a lunge or a squat. And the second thing, on the leg press, go feet a little bit higher opposed to lower, which should take more pressure off the joint. And let's say those movements still hurt and you still want to get some sort of leg day in, then just avoid those movements for the meantime and just do more hamstring glute stuff. So like RDLs, you can do hip thrusts, you do hamstring curls, calf raises, seated abductions, tons of stuff you can do without kind of bothering your knee. I guarantee RDLs, hip thrusts, stuff like that won't hurt you. If you're not familiar with those exercises, just send me a message, send me a DM, comment below, and I'll help you with that. Let's move on to lower back now. And this is probably the most nuanced of them all. So I'm gonna do my best to really simplify this for you in 3 main positions. So if your back hurts, probably 3 things overall. Again, there could be more, right? There could be some rotation, but I'm assuming you guys are professional golfers watching this, so I'm not gonna get into too much of the rotation stuff. Most likely to be 3 positions that might hurt you in the weight room when it comes to lower back. The first thing could be rounding your back. So kind of think you do like a deadlift, and like that position, it could be overextending your back, or it could be just like when you add more load, and if you add more weight, you're like, oh, fuck, my back hurts. If that's you, then I'll tell you what to do basically just in 1 minute. But the first thing, so if your lower back hurts when you well, let's do a test here first. The first thing I want you to do, test yourself. Does it feel better when you're here or if you're here? Like if this hurts, this position, then you know you're triggered. Like when your lower back rounds, you start to hurt, you gotta monitor that. If it's this position, you know when you extend the back, that's gonna trigger it. If it's like you add more weight or add more load in front of you, you're probably gonna get more core stability, and I'll tell you a couple of tips how you can fix that. But let's start with the back rounding. So this is probably the most typical one I see with men. It's like disc issues because we sit a lot through the day sometimes, or we just want hip mobility. We can't get into our hips, so our lower back does the work. If that position hurts you, Just like I taught you with the lunge and the squat, you gotta try to learn to get in your hips more when you're doing your squats and your deadlifts, right? So get in your hips more, because if your hips don't move back, look what's gonna move back. So this is hips here, but if this doesn't move, it's gonna be lower back, right? So let's say you're doing a deadlift, get your hips first, monitor how low you go as well. So if I'm like right here, I'm in a pretty good position, right? My hips are back, hopefully you guys can see okay. My hips are back, my lower back's really not rounding, but look what happens when I keep going. My hips stop, and my lower back does all the work. So if that position hurts you when you round your back, again, two things you're gonna do: get in your hips more without rounding your lower back, but also monitor how low you go down in your squats, your deadlifts, your lunges, basically any sort of movement you're doing that could potentially trigger that. So that's if your back rounds. If your back extends, we have two cues for you. Well, the first thing, you want to make sure you're not hyper extending at the finish, right? So if you're kind of looking like this, again, whether it's like a squat, a lunge, a deadlift, any sort of exercise, and if your back's extending a lot, we gotta fix that with two steps. Number one, to be cognizant, of course, of making sure not hyperextending. So you limit your range of motion, exact opposite basically of the back rounding. Instead of limiting your range of motion here, you limit your range of motion at the finish. The second thing we do, I like to cue core tight, ribs down. So kind of think like this position right here, you wanna lock this in, because when I come up in a deadlift, if this is tight, it's gonna be hard to hyperextend. But look what happens if I kind of poke out my belly. So this is kind of loose right now. Look at the difference. I can just extend like that, but this is tight. You can kind of see my lower back was a lot more in that neutral position. So if that hurts you and like you're doing movements where your lower back is flared up because you're kind of overarching, think ribs down, core tight, and make sure you're not hyperextending, because if you do, you're just gonna trigger that pain. And the third thing, this is pretty common as well, and this is a little more nuanced here, but it's if you add load to the movement, right? So maybe you do like deadlifts, like whatever, 45 on each side, you feel fine, but you toss on another 25 pounds on each side, and then you start getting back pain. Typically speaking, this is like a load intolerance thing. Maybe your body's just not ready for that load, and you gotta work your way up to it. Or the second thing, it's just not enough core stability, you're not bracing properly. So a good test you can do to see if this is you, have a weight right here, have like a 30-pound weight, bring it out, and see that pain triggers your lower back. And if it does, do the same thing, but now brace your core as hard as you can. So if this hurts with your core kind of loose, but now you're bracing as hard as you can and it doesn't hurt, it just shows you right there you're not engaging your core enough, and you're probably looking at a core stability issue. So when you're doing your movements to kind of fix that with your core stability, you want to make sure you're tight all the way through. So it's not like stick out here, it's not suck in, it's brace or tight, and you're pushing a little bit, but all around the core. So I'm pushing here, I'm pushing here, I'm pushing here. I'm not just hollowing, or I'm not obviously extend like that, because that just goes top lower back arch. I'm braced and I'm pushing, my lower back's in good position, I'm doing my reps, I reset, and that should feel a lot better for your lower back. So to recap all that, I know it's a lot. Again, lower back rounds, two things you want to do: limit the range of motion and just make sure you're not flexing your back, so you use your hips more. If your lower back hurts arching, you're limiting your range of motion at the finish and you're keeping your core tight. And the third thing, if it hurts, kind of adding more load, or that load test and it hurts, you want to think core stability by bracing at the front and pushing all around through the core to make sure your spine is nice and stabilized. Hope that helped. We have a free masterclass coming up in terms of how to lose stubborn belly fat without dieting, without anything crazy, without cardio. If you are interested in that, I'm gonna link the Facebook group in the notes below. Feel free to join it. I'll add you in once you request to join. And we're gonna start this probably in first week in September or last week in August. So make sure to register for it. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And we're gonna give some great value, how to lose 10 to 25 pounds of last-minute stubborn belly fat. And I guarantee you'll get some great value from it. You're getting more value than a lot of paid classes overall, I would say. Hope you enjoyed this. I know it's been a long video. I'm sweating good now. Putting the effort in, but we'll talk soon. We'll see you in part number 9.